Good morning, Jr6. How are you today? Let's complete our lesson, which is called oxygen gas. In the last video, we talked about the preparation of the oxygen in the laboratory. And we know that the oxygen can be prepared in the laboratory by decomposition of hydrogen peroxide, in the presence of manganese dioxide. And manganese dioxide as a catalyst. To speed up the reactions. Because this reaction is very slowly, so we must add a catalyst that speeds up the reaction. Okay? And the catalyst is chemical substance remains without any change in its quantity and properties during the chemical reactions. So the catalyst is a what? Chemical substance remains without any change in its amount or quantity and structure or properties during the chemical reactions. So in our preparation, the catalyst is manganese dioxide. So the hydrogen peroxide can dissociated or decomposed into two products, which are water and oxygen gas. And we know that the way that is collected, that used to collect the oxygen gas, is called downward displacement of water. Why? Because the oxygen is scarcely or rarely dissolves in water. So you have to differentiate between the way or the method to prepare the oxygen in the laboratory and the way to collect the oxygen gas. To collect the oxygen gas is collected by downward displacement of water. Why? Because the oxygen rarely or scarcely dissolves in water. It doesn't dissolve in water, so it's collected by downward displacement of water. Now we are talking about the properties of the oxygen. The oxygen has some properties. Number one, if you take a cylinder filled with oxygen and test its color and smell and taste, you can observe that the oxygen gas has no color, so it's colorless, has no smell, so it's odorless, has no taste, so it's tasteless. So the oxygen gas is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So it has no taste, no color, no smell. Number two, oxygen gas is scarcely or rarely dissolves in water. Oxygen gas is scarcely dissolves in water. If you turn a cylinder filled with oxygen upside down in a container filled with water, so the very little amount of water rises in the cylinder, like this picture. Very little water rises in the cylinder and doesn't reach the normal level of the water in the container. Why? Because the oxygen is scarcely or rarely dissolves in water. Number three, the oxygen gas doesn't burn, but it helps in burning. But it doesn't burn. If you fix a lighted candle inside a basin containing colored water, then cover the candle with a graduated cylinder. Fix lighted candle like this picture. in a basin containing water, containing colored water. Then cover this candle with a graduated cylinder like this, so you can see the lighted candle extinguishes. Why? Because the little amount of colored water rises like this. Little amount of water, it will rises inside the cylinder because the air inside the cylinder loses one of its component, which is oxygen gas, that is consumed by the candle during the burning. So the oxygen gas doesn't burn, but it helps in burning. Number 4, the oxygen gas is heavier than air. The oxygen gas is heavier than air, so it replaces the air. It takes the place of the air. Why or how? If you have two beakers, one of them filled with oxygen and another beaker filled with air, then turn the container or the beaker that filled with oxygen over another container that contains air. Then insert a burning fragment or burning match in the upper beaker, then in the lower beaker. You can observe that the burning fragment glows more in the lower beaker. It glows more in the lower beaker. Only. Why? Because the oxygen replaced the air in the lower beaker. Because the oxygen takes the place of the air. It takes the place of the air, so the burning fragments glows more in the presence of oxygen, because the oxygen help in burning. Number 5, the oxygen gas can combine with lightened magnesium to form magnesium oxide, which is a white matter. The produced matter, it's a white matter. The oxygen gas combined with any element to produce element oxide. So when it combines with the magnesium, it will produce magnesium oxide. This magnesium oxide, it's a white matter. It's a white matter. So the oxygen can combine with lightened magnesium to form or to produce the magnesium oxide. And the magnesium oxide is a white matter.
Here we have a ribbon of magnesium. Magnesium is a metal, has the properties of luster. You can see it's shiny, it's malleable, it's bendable, can conduct heat and electricity. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to react this magnesium with the oxygen in the air. We need a little activation energy to get the magnesium to react with the oxygen, and there it is. So oxygen's reacting with the magnesium ribbon, and it's releasing a lot of light and heat energy. This is one of the brightest lights that is produced by a chemical reaction. They often use magnesium in fireworks for these bright bursts of white light. It also is extremely hot. You can get very, very, very high temperatures from this chemical reaction. Now, coming off the light, you can see a white ribbon, and that is the magnesium oxide that's being produced. So magnesium atoms are being bonded to the oxygen atoms in the air to form that magnesium oxide product. Now we have an up-close look at the magnesium oxide. You can see it has a white color. That's one of the properties. And you can see it's very brittle. Basically, it's going to turn into a powder if you touch it. How do magnesium atoms bond with oxygen atoms? Well, let's take a look at.
Number 7, or I'm sorry, number 6, the oxygen has the ability to combine directly with most elements. Oxygen had the ability to combine directly with elements to produce element oxide. So the oxygen can combine with the nail or iron nail to form or to produce the iron oxides. Iron oxides means iron rusting. So if you wet some iron nails with water and leave them for several days in a humid atmosphere, so you can observe that the iron nails rust and lose their metallic luster, like this picture. So the iron, it will rust and lose its metallic luster, because the oxygen had the ability to combine directly with most elements to form oxides. Let's recap the properties of the oxygen. Number 1, the oxygen gas is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. Has no color, no smell, and no taste. Number 2, the oxygen gas scarcely dissolves in water, so it collected by downward displacement of water. Number 3, the oxygen gas doesn't burn, but it helps in burning. Number 4, the oxygen gas heavier than the air, so it replaces the air. It takes the place of the air. Number 5 and 6, the oxygen gas can combine with element to produce element oxides. So it can combine with the lightened magnesium to produce white matter. This white matter called magnesium oxide. And oxygen can combine with the iron to produce iron oxide or form the rusting or forming oxides. So the metallic luster or the iron nails loses its metallic luster. Now we will talk about the direct combination between the oxygen and most of elements. The oxygen can combine with any element to produce element oxide. So the oxygen can combine with element in 2 ways: by oxidation or burning. The oxygen can combine with the elements in 2 ways: by oxidation or by burning or combustion. So what is the difference between the oxidation and the burning? The oxidation, it's a slow combination or a slow union between the oxygen and elements in the presence of moisture or in the presence of water, as iron rusting. But the burning, it's a rapid union of the oxygen or rapid combination of the oxygen and elements to produce heat and light. So the difference between the oxidation and the burning, the oxidation, it's a slow union. It takes a lot of time to happen. It takes several days to happen. But the burning, it takes short time to happen. It's a rapid union. So it produces heat and light. But the oxidation, it must happen in the presence of water, like iron rusting. So the effect of the oxidation process, the iron rusting causes corrosions and damage of the ironware. At these bridges or nails or these ships. So the iron rusting may cause damage to the ironware. So how to avoid the iron rusting? By isolating or by painting the ironware, by paints to protect them from rusting. But examples about burning, like burn a piece of cleansing wire or piece of wood or piece of paper. So it produces the heat and light. It's a rapid combination. It doesn't take a long time. It takes a short time to happen. So it's a rapid union. But the effect of the combustion is the mass of the element increases after combustion. The mass of the element, it will increases after combustion. Because after burning or after combustion, the mass of the element combined with the oxygen. So the mass increases after the combustion. Like if you burn a cleansing wire pole, so the mass of the burning cleansing wire pole is heavier than that of the other unburned cleansing wire pole, because before the burning its mass is the iron, but after the burning its mass equal mass of the iron plus the mass of the oxygen. So when you burn a pole of cleansing wire strongly, its mass increases. Why? Because the oxygen combined with the iron, forming iron oxide, whose mass is higher than that of the iron only. So let's recap the difference or the comparison between the oxidation and burning. The oxidation, it's a slow union or a slow combination between oxygen and elements. This combination produces rusting or produces element oxide, but in the presence of the water or in the presence of moisture, like the iron rusting. What is the bad effect of the oxidation process? May causes damage to the ironware. And how to avoid the iron rusting? By painting the ironware to protect them from rusting. But the burning is what? It's a rapid combination or rapid union of the oxygen and elements which produced heat and light, like when you burn a piece of paper, a piece of wood. But the effect of the combustion process is the mass of the element increases after combustion, because the oxygen combined with the iron, forming iron oxide, whose mass is higher than that of the iron only. Now we will talk about the last title in this lesson. It is the importance and uses of the oxygen. Number one, oxygen is very important for the human and all living organisms because it's used in respiration process and food combustion process inside the living cells to produce energy to do all your activities or necessary for vital activities. So you use the oxygen to respire it or in the food combustion process to produce the energy. Number two, the oxygen gas, it's used to form the water molecule, because the water molecule consists of one oxygen atom that combined with two hydrogen atoms. So the oxygen gas very important in the formation of water, because the water molecule consists of one oxygen atom and two hydrogen atoms. And don't forget that the atom is the smallest part of the matter. So the water molecule consists of what? One oxygen atom and two hydrogen atoms. Number three, the oxygen gas, it's used to form the ozone molecule. It's used to form the ozone molecule because the ozone molecule composed or consists of three oxygen atoms. So the three oxygen atoms combined together to give O3. The O3 is ozone molecule. It's the ozone molecule. And the ozone molecule forms the ozone layer. So what is the ozone layer? It's a layer that protects the earth from the harmful radiation. It's a layer from the atmosphere. It's a layer from atmosphere. And its function, it protects the earth from the harmful radiation that coming from the sun. So the ozone layer, it's very important to our planet because it protects our planet from the harmful radiation that coming from the sun. So the oxygen is very important because the oxygen form the ozone molecule that is form the ozone layer that protect the earth from the harmful radiations. Number 4, the oxygen gas is compressed in iron cylinders to be used in number 1, like mechanical ventilations for patient who suffers from the breathing difficulties. The patient who suffer from breathing difficulties or have breathing difficulties, so the oxygen gas compressed in the iron cylinders to breathe it from these mechanical ventilations, and during surgeries, and during diving. When you dive under the sea, so you have to use the oxygen cylinder to respire from it. And during climbing mountains. Why? Why during the climbing mountains we have to take the oxygen cylinder? Because the oxygen is heavier than the air. So its percentage will decrease when we rise above the Earth's surface. Because the oxygen is heavier than the air. So when we rise above the Earth's surface, so its percentage will decrease. So we have to take an oxygen cylinder. Number 5, the oxygen gas used in cutting and welding metals. Because the oxygen can combine with gas called acetylene gas to produce flame called oxyacetylene flame. So when the oxygen combined with acetylene gas, it will produce flame called oxyacetylene. Oxygen plus acetylene produce oxyacetylene flame that is used in cutting and welding the metals. Because its temperature rises to 3,500 Celsius degree. So the oxygen combined with acetylene gas to produce oxyacetylene flame, which is used for cutting and welding metals, and because its temperature rises to 3,500 degrees Celsius. Let's recap the properties of the oxygen, or the importance or the uses of the oxygen. Number 1, the oxygen important in respiration, important in food combustion process inside the living cells. Number 2, oxygen used to form the water molecule, and the water molecule consists of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atom. Number 3, form the ozone molecule, because the ozone molecule consists of 3 oxygen atoms to produce the ozone layer. And the ozone layer, it's the layer that protects the earth from the harmful radiations. And oxygen gas can compressed in iron cylinders to used in medical ventilations and during surgeries and during diving and during climbing the mountains, because the oxygen gas is heavier than the air, so its percentage will decrease when we rise above the Earth's surface. The last one is cutting and welding metals. The oxygen gas can combine with acetylene to produce oxyacetylene flame. Its temperature rises to 3500, so it's used in cut and weld the metals. Now, give reason number 1. The oxygen is collected by downward displacement of water. Why? Yes, because the oxygen scarcely dissolves in water. Number 2, the ratio of the oxygen remains constant, or it's a fixed value in the air, although it's consumed during the respiration. Because the green plants, yes, produce the oxygen gas, it takes the carbon dioxide gas and produces or releases oxygen gas in the photosynthesis process. Number 3, the rusting of iron has many disadvantages. Why? Because it causes corrosions and damage for the ironware, such as bridges. Number 4, the iron nails rust when exposed to moist air. Why? Because the iron combines with the oxygen that exists in the air in the presence of moisture or in the presence of water, forming a layer of rust. Number 5, the oxygen cylinders are used during the climbing mountains because the ratio of the oxygen decreases when we rise above the Earth's surface. Number 6, the oxyacetylene flame is used in cutting and welding metals because the temperature of oxyacetylene flame reaches to 3500 Celsius degree. Number 7, the ozone layer is very important for the life of all living organisms, or to our planet or to the Earth, because the ozone layer protects the Earth from the harmful radiations that coming from the sun. Number 8, divers use the oxygen cylinders during diving under the water surface. Why? Because the oxygen gas is necessary for respiration under the water surface. What happens when, number 1, leaving iron nails in moist air for a long time? What happens to this iron nail? Yes, it will rust. It will combine with oxygen in the presence of water to produce the iron rusting, or so the iron nails will rust. The ozone layer is decayed. What happens if the ozone layer is decayed? Is damaged. Decayed means damage. Yes, the harmful radiations, all the harmful radiations that coming from the sun will reach to our planet or reach to our Earth and causes harms to the living organisms. Number 3, what happens if the percentage of the oxygen gas in the air is more than 21? Yes, we cannot control the burning because the oxygen gas helps in burning. So we can't control the burning process. Number 4, what happens if the percentage of the oxygen gas decreases in the atmosphere? What happens if the percentage of the oxygen gas decreases in the atmosphere? Yes, the living organisms can't respire. can't respire and the combustion process doesn't occur or doesn't happen. Number 5. What happens if the bridge's pillars are not isolated with paints? Yes, it will rust, causing damage to the bridges because the oxygen gas combined with the iron to produce the iron rusting. Thank you, Junior 6, for listening. See you.